on everything, so I just said just do all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the special Public Health and Safety Commission meeting. The time is right now 4:03 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask Program Coordinator Jackie Rapp to take roll call.
Commissioner Andrade,
Present.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Here.
Commissioner Morton,
Here.
Commissioner Sales,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods Drake.
Here.
Let the record show that all members are present.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. The next item we have on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand. Thank you very much. At this time, we do not have any special presentations and proclamations, so we will be moving on to item number 5, oral communications. Are there any oral communication requests?
Yes, we have two speakers. The first will be Gary Murphy, followed by Elena Thompson.
Or am I there? Oh, there I am. Scare the heck out of you. Hey, Gary Murphy, 123 West Leucadia Boulevard. In Leucadia. I call it Leucadia, but I love Encinitas too. I'm seeing all these new commissions coming up, and I don't really know that much about them all, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to what our needs are. But I went over some of your stuff that you're going to be doing, and I noticed there's no infrastructure. And the thing is, in health and welfare for this community, considering the drainage problems that we have in our area, it's pretty bad. I mean, this stuff's going in people's houses, these stuff's going into businesses, this flooding is going everywhere, and we have homeless that have no places to sometimes use restrooms, and we have restaurants that are throwing, have oil separators that go underwater, and they're turning the roads into ice skating rinks. I would appreciate it if you guys could put it on your agenda to look into infrastructures and safety stuff, safety and health. I mean, if it's bluffs caving in, or if it's potholes, or if it's anything that could cause any kind of hazard, infrastructure is the number one thing in my book. And I have had the opportunity since '95 to be involved with the city on a lot of drainage issues. And I've, matter of fact, designed the system that failed. I originally wanted to be 36 inches. Coastal Commission wanted it 24 at the end. We dropped it, and when we did, it's caused major flooding. And at the same time, we're moving water from Orpheus and Vulcan to the Leucadia area, which overloads the system even more. This means that there's a lot of pollutions going into places where it shouldn't. So if you guys could take the time to research some of this stuff, I think it would be interesting for you. And at the same time, it would probably help the community a lot. And I'd sure enjoy it if you could do that. I thank you very much for your time, and you guys have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Next, we'll hear from Elena Thompson, and we have one additional speaker after her for Karen Schroeder.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Thompson, and it's nice to see a new commission. I've been to hundreds of commission meetings over the decades, and I just wanted to wish you all good luck and address some of the work plan for tonight, I'm going to make one blanket statement because I can't stay. So I think that for you guys to be successful, you really need to hear from the residents and the businesses and actually take a poll, not just cook up ideas in your first meeting and then call it a work plan. I don't think housing and homelessness is what the residents and the businesses are chiefly concerned with. I think, like the last speaker said, I think infrastructure, deteriorating roads, bridges, drainage, the absence of sidewalks, bike lanes, incomplete and lagging projects, those are definitely key concerns that involve health and safety in our community and the movement of people throughout the community. Crime in Encinitas, that's definitely top of mind. A lot of robberies and issues going on right now. So deterring crime and protecting the residents really needs to be part of your focus, in my view, and the people I've polled. Homeless people's their impacts on the residents and businesses in the town really need to be addressed, not building a shelter in Encinitas. I think that's straying a little bit too far from any proposed work plan, and I don't think the residents would support that. And traffic enforcement and speeding of vehicles, and soon to be cannabis tourism. These are all going to be really huge health and public safety issues and already are, quite frankly. So I really think it's great that you're all here, but I think slowing down and getting your draft work plan right is really key. I was concerned hearing at hour 1:59 that you didn't have a work plan in the first meeting, and I thought that was good because you don't want to jump into anything. It's not a slam dunk here for a 2-year commission. And at the same time, I was concerned that Ms. Anhill encouraged each one of you to send a private message of what your particular interests were. That doesn't seem really transparent in my view. So again, pump the brakes, let's get it right. Let's get a plan that the residents and businesses support and are part of. And then I think as far as the chair goes, I think it'd be great to have some of the newly appointed commissioners as chair and co-chair. Some of the rest of you, I read some of the public comments online, and they were quite concerning, actually. And more importantly, new blood, new ideas, not recycled agendas, I think, is a really good way to go. So I hope you consider that. And then, yeah, I think just mostly, like I said, getting your work plan right. And if that takes 2 or 3 meetings, you know, God bless you. Let's get it right. Let's make you successful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Schrader, and I am new to this, so I just want to thank you for all showing up and listening to us. I'm new to how Civic works in Encinitas. I don't know what the Public Health and Safety Commission actually does and why we need it. I hope that the commission is coming up with a plan that makes sense and not distributes a plan that doesn't come from our community input, such as DEI and smart city implementation. Our community deserves a plan that brings us together and doesn't divide us. It seems like there is an agenda because the state is pushing these programs with a lot of money and power to have commissions such as these do their dirty work. We want the commissions to focus on the real community issues and not the ones that are easily prepackaged for the commission to distribute. I would urge you all to take your time with your draft work plan and the minutes and not rush it. Thank you for listening.
That concludes all speakers.
Thank you. The next item we have on the agenda is item number 6, changes to the agenda. Program Coordinator Rapp, are there any changes?
There are no changes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 7, approval of the minutes. Recommended action to recommend approval of the December 18, 2023 Public Health and Safety Commission meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
And who was the second? Me. Molly. Thank you. Thank you. And you should all be able to vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 8, action items. The first action item we have is 8A, Public Health and Safety Commission Chair and Vice Chair, with the recommended action to elect a chair and vice chair to serve one-year terms.
I am curious before I do any nominations, if there's anyone that's interested in being the chair. I think that that would make the most sense. If there's anyone that would like to self-nominate.
I'm happy to put myself forward to be chair or vice chair.
The same for me.
I'll throw my name in the hat.
Is there anyone who does not want to be chair or vice chair? Robin, I know you're chair of BHAB, so Lauren, do you have a preference one way or another?
I'd rather abstain.
Dan?
Would anyone like to entertain a motion at this time?
Motion to vote for chair and vice chair.
I second the motion. Discussion.
We need a name to put in the motion.
Motion to nominate Mr. Morton for.
I second that motion.
Okay, and for the vice chair?
Well, we can vote on
Oh, separately?
I'd like to self-nominate myself for the chair as well. And if it's okay, I'd like to pass out my resume and then talk about it a little bit. Does that work?
So there's a motion on the floor at the moment to nominate Commissioner Morton. So if you'd like to do a substitute motion?
Yeah, motion for a substitute motion.
Well, so, okay, so you have a motion and a second to nominate Commissioner Morton as chair. Then do you want to do a substitute motion to appoint
I think
Mr.
it's a
Dominguez?
friendly motion for additional discussion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No voting on that.
Does either Commissioner Dominguez or Commissioner Morton want to share?
Want to go ahead and start?
I can. Sure. I want to do it because I think I'm eminently qualified to do it. I've lived a life dedicated to improving the communities that I've worked with my many years at the Sheriff's Department. And I think with the Sheriff's Department, well, I was virtually assigned to every division in the Sheriff's Department. And if I were appointed, I'd do as I've done before, collaboratively identify and deal with real problems and address perceived problems, help guide the group to explore all possible and creative solutions. I've dealt with the Commission's charge for most of my career. I will be engaged in the process. I've always seen my role as a servant for the common good, and I see that in this opportunity to work together with all of you within our group and the community. I've been there, I've done the work, and I'm in a unique position to understand what the commission should do. I play well with others. I've worked within frameworks, government frameworks, and I'm dedicated to doing the right thing, differences respected. And in closing, I'm in a place in my life where I can do it. I have the time, and I'll bring honesty and hard work and real-life experience to the commission and to develop these collaborative solutions. And I can take the heat, and I'll show up. So that's all I can say. And you can see from my resume that I've been around the block when it comes to public safety. And so I think I bring a unique perspective to it. And I just do my best.
Love it. Thank you for that example. It was fantastic. I don't have any particular overarching desire other than just stand and say, you know, this is what I've done and this is what I may be able to do. As I understand from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report, there were some guidelines for what this commission was supposed to do, how we do it up to that. And I think that the responsibility of the commissioner is just to guide the discussion in the meetings, right? And I, in my career, have qualified in the sense that I've been to some very bad meetings, and I have a sincere desire not to repeat bad meetings, absolutely, from that. So if that really is just the purpose of the chair, is to organize our discussions and make sure everything's there, I think I'm a qualified candidate for that. The commissions that I haven't been part of a commission, but the service work that I have been a part of has been most successful when we be able to reach the level of unanimity in all the decisions that we've made. And I did some checking in. I guess the policy of the way we follow meetings is the Robert's Rules of Order as guidelines for what we do. And in a service structure that I was familiar with before, in order to ensure that there was unanimity, anytime where there wasn't unanimity in our voting decisions, we always asked for the minority opinion, right? And so before a decision was made final, those minority people were asked if they would like to speak about what goes on. And that would be something I'd like to instill in what we're trying to do here. And then I don't know if you're familiar with that, but what happens after the minority opinion discusses their reasons for why they voted the way they did, the chair will ask, does that change anybody's voting, right? And then ask for a second vote if the voting did change for one person. I've seen that work very well. The downfall of that is long meetings and a lot of talking and stuff. But that would probably be the unique thing that I would bring to being the commissioner, as well as probably the antithesis to you in the sense I do have a lot of time, but my time is due to the fact that I'm underemployed at this time and seeking some more serious gainful employment. So I am free right now to do a lot of things. So thanks for your time and consideration.
Are we able to ask questions now? In discussion?
Yes.
I guess my question for both of you, I mean, it sounds like, James, you go by consensus. You try to achieve consensus, which is, you're saying it takes a lot longer to achieve consensus than just do majority. So I'm wondering, Alex, what's your take on that? Or what's your style of?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd all like to be able to agree, right? And I know that, you know, we all have our own unique experiences in life that guide the way we think, and I think that would be wonderful if we could all agree all the time, but the reality of it is that that's not going to happen. So in the end, I think that we vote, and it is what it is, right? And then, you know, we support one another where we can. And I'll admit, I probably don't have the same level of experience in the sense of like running Robert's Rules, so I do have stuff to learn, but I'm a quick learner, and I don't think it's rocket science, right? So I think, you know, I can accomplish that. But in terms of consensus, I would love that. I think we should all be able to speak and get our points out there and try to understand each other.
Thank you. May I ask a second question after other people, whoever wants to ask questions?
You can go ahead.
Yes, I'd also like to remind the commissioners to use their mics to speak, just so that the recording can get every opinion and discussion.
Believe it's all you.
It's me. Okay, I have another question. Since we're going to be intricately involved with both the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, I'm talking into it, sorry about that. Do you feel, Alex, that there would be any issue with you with bias in terms of, in that area?
Well, yeah, we work so closely with the fire departments. They're, and they're like our brothers. I mean, we're always out there waiting to hear the siren come to bail us out of something, A lot of times they come and really help. So we work very collaboratively with the fire department. And I have great respect for the work that they do, and I've always got along with them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Actually, what I was
In our particular organization, the one I'm familiar with, the San Diego Sheriff's Department, that we take care of our business. And our culture is to not accept, abhorrent behavior or out of policy behavior, right? So that's my experience. And accountability is important. And I think if I asked the captain that question, he would agree exactly with what I had to say about that. So I don't see a bias, but I do see certainly that my experiences with the Sheriff's Department would shape the way I think about things, right? Yeah, I guess you'll just have to trust that I'll do the right thing in that respect. And I can promise you that's what I've done my whole career, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? My understanding is similar to what Jim shared, that the role of the chair is really to just help move the meetings forward and synthesize everything. And there's not necessarily like work externally or everyone's vote counts the same. It's
No,
really
that's exactly
Okay.
correct. The chair is really just to help lead the meeting, keep the meeting rolling, making sure that if things are off track, for instance, you start discussing something that's not on the agenda, the chair would cut that off. The chair would call people to speak, just kind of keep it orderly and moving. And then just as another point, the way that it works is we only follow Robert's Rules of Order as a guide, so we do not follow it explicitly. But basically what happens is a motion is made, there's a second, and then at that time, there's discussion. You can discuss at that point, you can say why you support the motion, why you don't support the motion. At that point is when you can discuss it. And then if there's, at that point, let's say you want to make an amendment, someone can say, hey, I would like to entertain an amendment to that motion. If not, once the vote is done, the vote is done. And then if for some reason at that meeting you decide you want to revote, you have to make a motion to reconsider that item. So there is plenty of time for everyone to discuss the item and to vent their opinion before the vote is taken.
To clarify that, I believe the chair is also the liaison to city council for the commission, is that correct?
Yeah, they would serve as the liaison, the chair, and possibly the vice chair. So let's say when you're presenting, because this board does give recommendations to the city council, then at that point, then the chair is typically the one that would present. But then again, that's also up to the board itself. If the chair wasn't available or.
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Jim Morton to chair and Alex Dominguez to vice chair.
I second the motion.
And then we do have a public speaker.
Hi again. I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but just to help out James, I think you've got two really good candidates, both who want the job. But if you're looking for a full-time job so you don't end up homeless, I think, you need to focus on that. So to me, I would urge you all to nominate Alex as the chair with James as the co-chair so he can pursue his job and his income seeking pursuits. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that, James?
My life is very messy, but I'm financially stable, so thank you very much.
And so then I'll just give you an example. So like this would be the time that the chair would say, okay, the public has finished speaking. Does anyone else have comments? And then the chair would go along and call those people that wish to speak on the commission. So we do have a motion and a second, and the chair would say, are you ready to vote? And if you're ready to vote, then we'll
Any
start the
commissioners
voting.
want to speak on this? I think we're ready to call the vote.
Stop voting. Record.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 8B, Public Health and Safety Commission Annual Work Plan. Commission Chair Morton, would you like to continue on the item?
Yes.
I'm just going to move over to the staff liaison
Okay.
area now.
Did we have any public comment on this item?
So I can get caught up, you're going to give a presentation right now?
And not a presentation per se, so we took all of the discussions that were taken at the December 2023 meeting, and we compiled all of the discussions and thoughts into a draft work plan. So I have it here up on the computer for you. You can discuss and revise any of the goals or changes or add something, whatever the commission would like.
All right,
Can I get the ball rolling?
absolutely.
Okay. All right. On this work plan, I was thinking that I'm really glad to see the community outreach at the number one position there. And we need our community to help us chart our course here and where we're going. And that should really be all our focus at this time. We were talking the other day about things being spread thin, and I just kind of feel like, and I'm mentioning it earlier about how we all have our perspectives. We come from our own different places, right? And I don't want to see the work plan come out of my own personal bubble, because like my bubble says we should have extra patrols, we should watch these marijuana dispensaries a lot closer. We should, do our best to arrest drunk. You know what I mean? I'm just going down the line right here. That's my own personal bubble. And everybody's got one of those. And it's good. It's a good thing. But we have to give a voice to the people. And on the front end, before we define what our ad hoc committees will be. I'm not comfortable, after thinking about this, with these ad hoc committees without input. I think we need to find some vehicle, some way to put together a way to get input from the public. And the focus should be what our stakeholders want, whether it be the citizens, the fire chief, sheriff's captain, station commander, we need to hear input, we need to hear these voices, and brainstorm. And then I think we have to brainstorm for how we're going to reach out and accomplish that. So that's what I think our focus should be and should guide us to give the public and our stakeholders a voice. We don't want to start off on the wrong foot, right? Just saying this is what we're going to do. It's super important that we're inclusive. The city council didn't give us, any firm direction, right? And this is going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint. So just jumping in with both feet, I think, is maybe not advisable. And I was also thinking about this. I think somebody, I can't remember who said it, but I think it was Dan. We might need more meetings. Instead of all these ad hoc committees just rolling along and getting started, more meetings to decide a better idea where we are, where we're going, where we want to go. We have to prioritize because this, we've got people saying, well, you got to arrest drunk drivers. We've got people saying, well, you got to drain more drainage. It's so much going on. So, if we're going to make recommendations to the city council on this stuff, we have to prioritize it and figure out what's most important and where we can make an impact. So we all do this for the community, and we need to listen and hear them, and then take action on how we want to make the recommendations to the city council and mayor. So I do have a motion, and I can wait to hear others' input before I make that motion.
Lauren, I think your light was on. Did you want to talk?
I don't know, maybe it was like on my forehead or something, but I did want to talk, actually, but maybe you just saw that I didn't say anything here,
So
but.
I was, if I could, I was observing the meetings. I think the clever thing they do up here is when you want to talk,
You touch
you
something.
push your green light.
Oh, well,
And so
mine's just always on.
I'll try
so-
to keep looking. Or is there some other thing that says I want
There's
to
a
talk?
request to speak on your
Yeah.
monitor.
But I actually couldn't agree more with what he's saying in that, we're all kind of new to this game here as far as, I'm a fire captain, he was a sheriff. We're familiar with the industry, that kind of thing. However, we need to know what the target hazards are here, what the needs are. I think it was great that the gentleman came and talked about infrastructure with El Nino coming and flooding and stuff like that. However, I do think the community is very important to get that feedback from. However, we've got two people, chief and the captain over here that know what they need. And I think that I would ask you all, if there's something here that you see on this agenda that we're missing, to please speak up, because we're really here to support you all.
I think that was an opportunity for you gentlemen to speak if you'd like to.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we're all sitting here for is really to hear what the community wants also. We do have priorities and goals that we're working on that a lot of this stuff is in motion too. I've spoken with Commissioner Andrade about some of our Leave Behind evacuation plans that we have going and some of the resources that we're doing with vegetation management. And, a lot of the stuff that we're working on is in motion a little bit. There will be some things that as we talk with the commission that things will come up where we're like, oh yeah, this is going down the right path, or this is going to help us with some other goals. But I do like, with the public comment and with your guys' input, we have blind spots too within the city. I think we do a good job of trying to look at every community and see what all the target hazards are and try to go above and beyond and really identify the needs. But we have blind spots too, and I think this is what's unique about the Public Health and Safety Commission is that you guys are out there, you live in the communities, you talk to the citizens or the residents or the passerbys, the tourists, whoever is coming in, and you have a different perspective than we do. We want to hear that perspective as well. So we do have some goals and ideas that we'd like to run by you too, but I think we really want to hear your guys' perspective at the moment, and then we can kind of start working towards some of those other goals as well, if that's fair. You want to say something?
Well said, Chief. I agree completely. As you look at number one on your list, community outreach, obviously we have to get information out to the community, but there should be a mechanism where we receive the information as well. There's 63,000 residents in the city, and I'm sure they all have an opinion on their public health and safety, and it would be a valuable step to receive some of that feedback and hear it. But like the chief said, we keep a constant eye on things that are going on under our particular umbrella of responsibilities. And so any way we can continue to improve on that, we'll take that opportunity. So.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, we will let you know when you guys, as the commission, can really help us in achieving those goals. So we're not trying to just, kick the can down the road to you, but we really do want to hear your guys' feedback and your ideas and information so that we can better even our own goals and ideas. So again, I'm not trying to kick the can down the road, but we do want to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll say, with regards to the work plan, I think it's a good first step, what you see up there. Is it meant to be the be-all, end-all? I don't think so. And I say that because none of these things that we're dealing with are issues that are just standing there alone. They're not standalone items. There are things that are going to happen throughout the course of the year, throughout the course of the next year, that we have no idea is going to happen or is going to be an issue. So I don't think we wait to for some of those things. And I say that because most of us have all come here. Most of us have come here with a bit of a pulse on what's happening in our segments of the community. And the beauty of this body here is, there's so much diversity up here. There's so many people from different aspects of life in Encinitas. And so I think from a starting point, we have a good idea as to what are some of the issues out there, because a lot of this has been worked. And I'll say, from being part of the equity committee that, this was born from, the first thing that you'll hear with the discussion of the Public Health and Safety Committee is for this body to serve as a conduit between the citizens and the city. So ideally, yes, people will come in, people will have their voice heard. And it's up to us to be able to, synthesize those comments down into actionable items. So I like what's on here as a good start. And I look forward to hearing from more residents as to, what they want, more of, less of, and looking at, the list and seeing what's happened over the last week and what's about to come up over the next week. I feel it's important that, we do take a look, or at least, get the storm drain situation on here. I do believe it's important to get, our fire zone information on here. I do believe that we can do those things while also tackling mental health, while also tackling, the homeless problem. I think it's, I feel like we're a talented enough group where you can do multiple things at one time. So those are my thoughts on it. I like the start of this, and like I said, the things that I would add would be to add something on there to address the storm drain situation, and probably a more comprehensive, instead of just focusing the fire piece on Olivenhain. Driving around the city, there are a lot of pockets that are very close, very tight, and if something were to happen, it would be a quick disaster. So, let's take a look at those things. And then, final note, the problems that I mentioned didn't just pop up over the last year. They've been around for decades. So I think it's a matter of being realistic in the expectations of, let's talk about it. But at the end of the day, we are an advisory board. That's it. We have no power to, make any of these things happen. But if we put together a good enough, a more concise plan, then who knows? Maybe we can kick some things into action. But that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much.
So I agree with Commissioner Dominguez in that, engaging the community is absolutely important. One of the things, I appreciate people coming today and sharing comments that I think is really important to note and for us to do our own work on is understand the existing commissions that we have. Some of the things I heard today had to do with infrastructure, traffic and mobility, what's happening to our streets, erosion to the streets, as well as the environmental effects that the drainage is having. And this isn't me saying I don't want to deal with that, but there is an infrastructure task force who is probably far more well-versed on this at this point than we would be. There is an environmental commission and there's a traffic and mobility commission who they have been in position for many years working on these exact issues. And so I think I live in Leucadia. My house is in total disarray because it flooded on Monday. So I am with everyone on we need to figure out how to address what is happening. But I think that there's existing commissions that are already leading on this work. And so I think that in the engagement of the community, we also can do some education of here's what already exists. Here's who could best support you in focusing on these direct issues. And I also think that it's really important that if we want to prioritize community outreach and survey and listening to them, I would encourage us to, yes, have another meeting, but get a survey out within a month because it's going to take a lot of time. And so I don't want to, what I know in looking at this list, mental health, wellness, substance abuse, and addiction, which is an ad hoc committee that I would like to sit on, is I know that every day our fire and our police are getting calls for fentanyl overdoses, and I don't want to wait to respond to those sorts of things because we're waiting and deliberating about what sort of survey we're going to put out to the community. So I also agree with Marlon that we can do multiple things at the same time. My recommendation would be to actually have, because of how the Brown Act works, my understanding is that we can't have any more than 3 people, which would then be a quorum, working together unless it's a public meeting such as this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's 3. So we could create
That is correct.
We could create an ad hoc committee that is just working on that communication piece. They could meet outside of these meetings as often as they want, correct? Yes. Have the conversation as long as they don't have a majority to take a vote. Similarly, an ad hoc committee, if we decided that was going to be created on mental health, wellness, substance abuse, wanted to start working on that, and another ad hoc committee wanted to start working on resource and readiness. I think Commissioner Andrade and Dominguez, that is the world you come from. That I don't think that this stops us from really expanding a work plan, but I think it's possible to do these multiple things at the same time. And so I'm absolutely in agreement that we should do more community outreach, a survey. As we just heard from the chief, there's 63,000 people that live here. So part of that is figuring out how are we getting in touch with these people. I know I got a text message maybe a month ago from the city asking me to fill something out. I don't know how many people actually did that. I think it had something, I forget what it had to even do with. I don't think most people respond. How are we talking to businesses? How are we engaging our public service? And our public servants, and then organizations, and then the questions that we want to ask, I think we need to shape what is actually within our purview. Because again, if we put this broad net out there and we hear we want someone to address storm drainage, that's infrastructure and that's mobility. And I think it's most expeditious to support people to go to the meetings where they're going to be most well supported. And then us having a very tight timeline on creating this, getting it out, synthesizing the information so that we could actually start to move forward. Because similarly to what Marlon said, I think many of us work and have worked within this community for a long time to hear the voices of our constituents, to know, it's like what concerns are and really who's suffering the most while we're waiting for things to be done. So that would be my recommendation, not in a formal motion, but just kind of my my thoughts on everything.
Commissioner Sales.
Yeah, I would second what Molly and Marlon just said. When I heard from one of our speakers about the traffic, and I'm thinking, okay, how do we separate out what's within our purview? And I think this work plan is a good beginning as a draft, but I think we really need to focus in. I like the idea of the ad hocs just as a way to get things done more quickly with people who are have a particular interest in something. Like, I don't feel like I could sit on necessarily the fire department, in terms of the fire department or the sheriff's department necessarily. But if I was to, I saw that my name was under mental health. I was glad to see that, but, I would love to work with different people on that, because we really need to hear from everybody in the community and the different, because like I said, the sheriff and the fire department dealing with not only fentanyl overdoses, but homeless folks with severe mental illness. And there's a lot of stuff coming up from the state that we have to really address. But yes, I like the idea of starting with the ad hocs. I think, when we were on the equity committee, we really had that struggle. And one of the first things we put out there is we need a community survey. That was number one thing. And I think in effect, it's really hard to do a community survey and get a representation of the community. I don't think you get that. You get people who are interested, who come to the meetings, but there are a lot of people out there who do not respond to surveys. But I think 20% is considered a really good rate of return on a survey, and you're not going to get 20%. Usually you get about 3 or 4% of folks. So I don't know if that's the best way to go about finding out, but at some point, a town hall where we hear from a lot of people and can get a temperature in the community and what the community wants might be a good option. Thank you.
May I? Yes, you can. Everyone's had a chance to speak once, so we can go through.
Chair Morton, we
Dan,
do.
Excuse
Dan.
me?
Sorry.
Dan?
Sorry, Dan.
That's one of the rules they gave me.
Okay.
Everybody
I
gets to
wouldn't have
speak
followed
first.
that, so it's a good thing.
Just to help you out, if people press the request to speak on your screen, it's going to say who has requested to speak, and then you can call people that way.
All right, so we've heard a couple times, and I had the same question. We do have other commissions that are charged with some of these overlapping issues. Jennifer, could you take a minute just to talk about where some of those things really properly belong?
Thank you very much. Also, too, I think Program Coordinator Rapp was also going to say we do have 2 public speakers. So before we get too far down discussion, we do like to hear from our public. But if it's okay, really quick, I'm just going to go ahead and chime in. Jennifer Campbell, Assistant City Manager. I was also the Park, Rec, and Cultural Arts Director for 5 years. Under my department, I had the Youth Commission, Senior Commission, Commission for the Arts, and the Park and Rec Commission. So I'm here to support Senior Management Analyst. Yeah. As I've got a great deal of commission experience. So just a couple things that I do want to point out. Number one, you are developing your work plan. All work plans need to go to City Council for approval. So before any commission undertakes any work, we do look for City Council approval. Commissioner Taylor was right, except for the Planning Commission, they actually do make decisions. Most of the other commissions, what you do is you make recommendations to City Council. So just clarifying that. Yeah, we do have several other commissions here in the city. It may behoove everyone to check on the website. It basically talks about what each commission does, their general makeup. Again, most of them have 7 that are appointed by City Council. It also has their work plans. So, for instance, traffic safety and mobility, they look at sidewalks, roads, bike lanes, stop signs, different requests that come in from the community. Environmental Commission looks at everything from stormwater, ocean pollution, recycling, things like that. Park and Rec, Youth Commission. So to Commissioner Vaughn's point, we do have several other commissions within the city that are tasked with certain things. We also, as Commissioner Molly Woods Drake pointed out, we do have an infrastructure task force. That infrastructure task force was commissioned by the City Council. They will be bringing a final report to City Council on February 28th. We have a very large backlog of what we call capital improvement projects. Many of them do deal with flooding, roadways, things like that. So they are going to be making some recommendations to City Council and some possible funding recommendations as well. So it would probably be good to have an overview of what other commissions do. Like I said, you can find that on the website. As this commission was created for public health and safety, we know we wanted the fire chief and the sheriff's captain to be very involved. Some of this also did come from the equity committee that also met for a year, and there were some recommendations that came out of that. So it truly is up to you folks what you want to do. Of course, listening to the public is very important, but before undertaking any type of survey or anything like that, you need to draft your work plan, bring that to council for approval. The other thing I would say is your meetings, as this one is done in public, the public is always welcome. We agendize every meeting properly, and we do allow oral communication as well as communication on all item agendas. So what you folks are doing right now, the work you're doing, is in a transparent forum, and you are able to get public comments. So Commissioner Vaughn, does that help answer a little bit, or would you like any additional information, sir?
Specifically, the public safety aspect of flooding, is that covered, in your opinion, by the environment or infrastructure work streams?
Commissioner Vaughn, it would, as far as any type of stormwater pollution, that would definitely probably be dealt with Environmental Commission. I think one of the things the city, again, which the Infrastructure Task Force is trying to do, is we have a large backlog of many projects, whether it's new buildings, whether it's paving roads, whether it's drainage, whether it's in Leucadia, fire stations in Levenheim. They're addressing that. What will end up coming up, as we all know, it's great to have a list of projects, but there's got to be some type of funding mechanism, and there's got to be a way to actually complete those. Those type of projects then are done by our engineering department. So I do know, and maybe the fire chief may want to talk. I mean, we did have some emergency calls when the flooding was happening, but it's basically, this would be more about projects. And honestly, a lot of those type of projects are going to need city council support, and that's who's actually going to determine what projects do get done in the city. So that's really at a very city council level.
Okay. So Chief Gordon, is there anything that you need from us to help support adequacy of flood response?
On our end, we're reactionary, right? So if there's a flood that happens, we're going to get called out to assist the community in either stopping the damage. We don't normally help too much with the residential home. We try to help mitigate some flooding here and there, but really we have to be available for true emergencies where people are hurt or sick or fires, swift water rescue, stuff like that. So really I think the Environmental Commission and Stormwater and all them are really working to figure out a good solution for the flooding. It's really not on the fire department side. I can say though that as you're looking into some of these other commissions, one of the things we don't want to duplicate efforts, right? So with the Levenheim, concern that we have, we're really working on a very detailed plan already for Levenheim, for the wildfire prevention, for education, vegetation management. We have a list of 21 recommendations that we had a consultant already give us that we're deep into already when it comes to the vegetation management, trying to catch it up to the CAL FIRE standards. So I don't necessarily think reinventing some of these wheels is probably your best time. Not to say that it's not an important thing, and we can probably give you updates as that goes, just to keep you informed. And but I'm not sure, with all of the work that's already going on, I don't know if that would be the best use of your time at the moment with the Levenheim. But I would love to give you an update on where that is and how it's going. But again, you're the Public Health and Safety Commission, so we'll kind of look to you to see what direction you guys would like to go.
Great, thank you. I do have some personal thoughts to weigh in at some point, but it sounds like we have public comment that needs to be taken, so I'm happy to defer to that if you want.
Can I answer a quick question? And then we'll get to public
So
comments.
real quickly, since we have ad hoc committees that we have here on mental health and wellness, substance abuse and addiction, and the committee that supports the unhoused, are there any committees currently working on those two items on our work plan? Or is that sort of a hole in our city's committees to deal with it? Yeah.
So we currently don't have a committee that works for the unhoused. We do have homeless services managers and the development services department that assists with the goals for homelessness. But other than that, and mental health, we do not have any other commission related to those.
So nothing for mental health either?
Not at this time.
We'll entertain public comment now.
There are two speakers. First up will be Gary Murphy, followed by Elena Thompson.
Hello again, Gary Murphy, Leucadia. There's so many commissions. I've been dealing with drainage for 30 years, and there's a lot of mistakes made. And sorry to say this, but the fire chief's supposed to be head of the emergency opening and closing of a valve that's become public works stuff out of Rick's Engineering's report of 2004. But forget that. I'm going to retract what I said tonight earlier because I didn't understand what your commission really did. I don't care about the traffic part tonight. I don't care about the drainage infrastructure on this thing, but I do care about the health and safety of people's homes and water going into it that is around restaurants that have separators and have other fecal matter and any kind of health stuff that people can't go to the restrooms because we don't have efficient restrooms for some of our homeless. And that is your department. And that is what you have to look at. And you have to look at them pumping water over the bluff at Beacons Beach. The environmental, yeah, they're going to look at the sand and they're going to look at the rocks and they're going to look at the ocean, but they're not going to look at the kids that go and play there the next day after they pump the water over the bluff. So that's your department. So what I just heard with this thing is that everybody has commissions for everything, but every commission needs to have input on what their commission is, and yours is health and safety and welfare of the people's life, of who's going to get sick from this stuff. So please do not take it off your agenda. Make sure that you look at it from your point of views under what your guidelines are, and I will talk to the other commissions. But this one here needs to stay with drainage on the safety of people's homes. You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you have this kind of water sitting in your house, and then after you clean it, you don't get all those germs out. Restaurants, businesses, and our beaches will have safety problems for health. That's your department. Don't sweep it under the rug, okay? Thank you very much for your time, and I surely appreciate it, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. Have a good evening.
It's good more people didn't come to the meeting, but this is kind of fun, this back and forth. So I think the discussion's going well, and it's good that it can be back and forth. So thank you for that opportunity. And I'm hearing kind of some strong voices at this end wanting to move things quickly. And this end, you guys were like, yeah, let's talk to the people. Let's really get this right. Let's figure out what our work plan is. So I don't really think that this work plan is necessarily one you need to hold on to. I think, again, slow down and keep talking amongst yourselves. This is really good. And hear from the speakers and come back next time and finalize your work plan. In my view, items 3 through 6 can completely be dissolved. And I think it's just too much to bite off at this point in time, and I don't really know where those ideas came from. Did one of you email those in to get them in the work plan? Because I listened to the audio, and this wasn't all fully discussed. Did you, Molly? Yeah, well, I listened to it. I know Pam invited people to email you with your interests and ideas, and I see that some of these are your individual interests. So I just wanted to know that. And then I don't see the need for subcommittees and ad hoc groups under you all. I think you all need to get your bearings, figure out what your work plan is, then decide if you really need subcommittees and how many people would be on those and for what groups. I'm just seeing things move really quickly, and you're all appointed, and then you're going to appoint people to be on a subcommittee. And I just think I want to know who's making decisions for me in my city, and I want to help you make the right ones. And as a disclosure, I did apply for this commission, and I'm happy to support you and be a voice here, but I'm not supportive of some of this stuff, and I'm supportive of you just taking your time getting the work plan right here tonight. So thank you.
That concludes all speakers for this item.
Commissioner Dominguez? Did you still want
Oh,
to speak?
No, I've said my piece.
Okay. And Dan, were you done, Parley?
Well, I think as everybody knows, I've got a bit of a passion for helping the homeless. But I wanted to just speak to the goal, support the unhoused. I think that that's the wrong goal. I think that we should work to eliminate homelessness, or at least greatly reduce homelessness. And I teed up a short video that sent into IT, and I think they have it on the queue. If staff can play the Built for Zero video. Built for Zero is a program by Community Solutions. No, that's the wrong one. That's the one.
Can you imagine living in a community that has solved homelessness? A world where when an emergency arises, a person can get the support they need to remain in housing. And if they ever lose their home, they are moved into housing quickly by a system that knows them and what they need. Homelessness is rare, brief when it happens, and never becomes a way of life. The truth is, we don't have to just imagine it. In the Gulf Coast region of Mississippi, any veteran who becomes homeless is connected to housing within 30 days of identification. No one's left behind. And they aren't the only ones. Across the country, communities in Built for Zero are proving that homelessness is solvable. They do it by shifting their methodology and their mindset. First, they build a single team that is accountable for ending homelessness across the community. Who's responsible for ending homelessness in your community? The truth is, many stakeholders hold a piece of the solution, but no one has their eye on how the pieces fit together. In Built for Zero communities, everyone who serves the population works together to align their collective efforts behind a shared goal. Second, they commit to a shared aim of ending homelessness. Often, success for those working on homelessness is defined by how their individual programs perform. Built for Zero communities measure progress by whether they are collectively driving down the number of people experiencing homelessness. Their goal is to reach functional zero, a dynamic milestone that ensures homelessness stays rare and brief. Are fewer people experiencing homelessness than can be routinely housed? Once they reach functional zero for veterans or people experiencing chronic homelessness, they work to sustain it and scale that learning to the next population until their systems are built to end homelessness for all. Third, they know everyone experiencing homelessness by name and in real time. You can't solve a problem that you can't see, and homelessness is a dynamic problem that is constantly changing. But it's often tracked using an annual anonymous street count, which is just a snapshot. To end homelessness, a community needs a video. Built for Zero communities maintain by name data on who's experiencing homelessness in real time. They understand not only every individual's needs, but the dynamics of the population as a whole. They know who is entering homelessness, who is actively experiencing it, and who is exiting it. That way, they can target where systems can be improved, test new ideas, and track whether their efforts are actually driving numbers down. Finally, they make data-driven targeted investments. Expanding housing resources is crucial, but many cities have dramatically done so without making a dent in homelessness. The reason? They never fix the housing system. Real-time data enables communities to secure and target housing resources to drive the greatest possible reductions in homelessness. Homelessness is a big and complex problem, but it's not too big or complex to be solved. While it affects those who experience it in the deepest way, it affects less than 1% of the population. Communities can build systems that continually eliminate it and ensure everyone has a place to call home and live with dignity. We can take steps together toward a future where homelessness being rare and brief is the norm, not the exception. Is your community a part of it?
So with that in mind, my recommendation is to tweak some of the goals here for the homelessness work plan, focusing really on meaningfully reducing the amount of homelessness. Maybe not in 2024, but at least in 2024, to get that by name list, to get the data, to get the coordination and focus on coordinated homeless response here in Encinitas, so the various stakeholders are working hand in glove on that. Thank you.
Excuse me. I don't think you can do that.
Stephen Gonzalez is the housing manager, and I am part of the homeless response here in Encinitas, and I can tell you that
Dan, did you have recommendations for how to change it this time? Do you have a document like that, or?
I don't have a written document
Okay.
like that. I do have some specific thoughts on how to change that. I'm happy to walk through them if we want. But I think that this is the first round of comments, so maybe we work towards consensus before we do any wordsmithing.
On the topics that we're going to cover?
And so along that mindset of working towards consensus, I'd like to support some of the colleagues who suggested that the survey be moved up to as soon as possible, and maybe followed up with a second end-of-year survey if enough time has passed in between to be useful.
That sounded like a motion. Is there a second? Or was that even a motion?
No, I think we're well ahead of a motion. I think we're in discussion, building towards consensus.
Yeah, all right. Yeah?
Okay. So what I heard from the city that I'm not sure I was aware of before, and I don't know if others were, is we can't really move forward with any actions until we create our work plan, bring that to the council, and then have the council vote on it. So is that correct?
Yes, we have to present this work plan to council before the commission can continue on to view work items.
Okay, perfect. So I think that continues to support what I was saying earlier, that we're not attempting to rush through anything, but we can't actually take any action until we put a work plan before the council. And I personally would prefer if our work plan, the only goal that we had on it for 2024 wasn't to create a survey and just do outreach to the community, but actually had some other work that was part of that. And I also just want to make sure everyone is here, because it seems like there's confusion from the audience, that the ad hoc committees, it's made up of us. We're not seeking out other people from the community. We are the ad hoc committees that are here. There's not additional people that are being brought in. That's how the ad hoc committees work. And yeah, I just, again, think doing a community outreach and survey is great. I have worked on many of them. I have put them out into the community. There is typically a lot of people that open an email or don't open an email, especially it comes from the city and they delete it. And I would hate for our work plan to consist of community outreach without actually taking other actionable items. And so my discussion would be, yes, I agree also with Dan that, flushing out what the work is of eliminating homelessness. And I think also, getting information from our businesses and those that video is helpful, that those that are impacted by homelessness are those that are living unhoused, but it's also the other people in the community. So I want to make sure that it's how are we supporting everyone who's impacted by what's happening and getting input from others around that. So I think really fleshing out what that looks like. And what I hear from the fire chief is, the special projects on here isn't really something we need to work on. 21 recommendations that need to be worked through from the existing group working on that seems like a lot of work that's already gone into that. But I think working on community outreach and these other 3 items that we have here and bringing that forth more fleshed out to the city council as our work plan for 2024 seems like a good start. And obviously, if it needs to be amended based on the results from the community outreach, I think that that's something that we can perhaps be able to do. I'm not sure if work plans are amendable, that we can do that a couple months later.
Can I just ask you a question? It seems like we're editing in real time. As you're talking, they're crossing off the Leavenhagen fire evacuation plan. I'm not sure that's what we want to, the intent is it?
The intent is to review and make changes to the draft work plan during this agenda item. So I'm just making the actions as people are discussing them, but I'm not, I can always bring them back as well.
If it's easier for efficiency to focus on one thing at a time on here, I think the easiest thing is maybe we just have a discussion right now around number 7, special projects. My motion, based on what I hear from the fire chief, is that that's something that's already being worked on. So I would make a motion to take that off of our work plan and leave that with those that have far more expertise in that. But so maybe we just do a discussion around that and then go line by line. I'm not sure if that makes the most sense for efficiency.
Hey, well, as somebody who lives in Leavenhagen, I know how important this is to our community. And I wouldn't want to get in the chief's way, but I also know that the updates and communication on progress towards the Fitch Report goals, and we had a wonderful set of community meetings a year and a half ago or so at the OTC meeting hall, and I think that a community input meeting at the OTC meeting hall as part of the update this year, if the chief is supportive of that, would go a long ways in helping that community dialogue and communication. Chief, do you have anything?
Yeah, we just we had a Leavenhagen Town Hall meeting a couple months ago, like 3 months ago maybe. I have no problem putting together another one just for as informational purposes. We'll make sure that we get it out on our through the city and their media and communication outlets. So we'll make sure that we get one. Maybe a special project instead of the actual, plan to achieve long-term fire safety goals is to communicate and to use public education to keep them informed of the progress that we're making on the plan itself. So that's just a recommendation maybe, but I'll throw it back to you guys, the commission.
Did anybody else have a comment about Molly's decision to? Okay, because let's see if that's.
Okay, yeah, I would, to kind of dogpile in on number 7, I would say, to follow the chief's guidance, since there's already a group working on that. I don't think we add anything to it by adding to it other than potentially more, or potentially opening nothing more than an avenue for a little bit of confusion. So I would say we should probably remove that. with regards to some of the other opportunities, the way I'm looking at this thing, I see 3 potential paths here, possibly 4. One where we have a group that's focused on mental health with a community outreach component to it. The second being a group that's focused on the unhoused with a community outreach component to it. The third being resource readiness, and you can probably add with a community outreach component to it. And then the fourth piece being an emerging opportunities group for things that we hear at meetings that, public comments from the survey potentially, as things come in, we can say, all right, hey, this is your concern. And then from there, we can figure out, is there a commission that's already working this issue, or can we take it in and put it under one of the existing ad hoc committees that we may have? That way, my thinking is it's somewhat streamlined. We have a dedicated group of individuals that are working on these things, because no matter how we slice it and dice it, these are some of the bigger issues that under the purview of public health and safety that we'll be dealing with: mental health, homelessness, and resource readiness. I understand the gentleman's concern about stormwater, but there's already the environmental folks, there's already the infrastructure folks. We add nothing to that. So those are my thoughts on it.
Robin?
So am I supposed to be responding to Molly's
I think we're talking
motion?
about the 7, just specifically, if we
Okay.
could.
So one of the concerns I have when it comes to the ad hocs, which I think is just a more efficient way of getting things done. I mean, it's hard to do things with 7 people meeting, even finding a time to meet outside of this meeting. And I think, that's the purpose of ad hocs, as I understand it, is people work on a specific focus and then report back to the larger group. And we may not have a plan when we leave here today, and I agree with the speaker is that we don't need to rush a plan. My concern about the mental health, wellness, substance abuse, and addiction, and the unhoused is that Encinitas is part of a county, and the county has a lot of clout when it comes to these issues and a lot of funding stream. So my experience on the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, for example, I'll just give you a good example, and this has to do with unhoused people who have behavioral health issues, is there aren't enough board and care homes for people in the community. I was just reading today that the need is thousands and thousands of board and care homes for people. So we're not talking about necessarily apartments for people, or studio apartments, or single room occupancies. We're talking about a place where a person can be housed and get supportive services. And so we're not a vacuum. The city is part of how many cities? 18 cities in the county that are funded by the Board of Supervisors. And the Board of Supervisors funds all the behavioral health, of course, money coming down from the state and federal government. So since we're not working in a vacuum, I think we really need to understand what the city is doing and what funding streams are current. And maybe Jennifer can answer that. I know that's a big question, but I don't think we can put forth a plan without understanding that. And if we need to ask speakers to come in and give us updates, is that a possibility?
Commissioner Sales, thank you very much. That is one thing I wanted to let the commission know. We can absolutely bring in speakers, whether it is staff from other departments, whether it's folks from the county, other nonprofits. We do that in all the other commissions. They're guest speakers. They come. This way you folks can ask questions, get additional information. So that's absolutely acceptable, and that actually helps to educate the commission on other things that are going on. I also wanted to throw out there that you folks are looking at a lot of community outreach. One possibility that the commission can do is at our special events, you can come have a booth. So you are right there when we have people at the special event. You can't have usually about 2 at a time that represent the commission. Again, we don't want to have a quorum, but you can let the folks know what the commission does, maybe solicit feedback, just talk to the folks. So that's a great community outreach. We actually have our Park and Rec Commission, senior and youth, that will tend to go to all of our special events, and those are city ones. I know Seclovia is going to be coming up in May. So just as a thought, that might be a public outreach tool for this commission to be able to engage the community as well. So guest speakers are a definite yes, and that might be a community outreach tool that the commission could use.
If I could, I'll just make some comments. I absolutely think that it makes sense to remove the Olivenhain thing off the special projects in my mind. And maybe we can entertain a vote to that. I reviewed the equity, diversity, and inclusion report from which this came under, and there's actually a scope of work that was outlined briefly as guidelines in it, and I encourage, if you're not familiar with it, but it lists A to H things that were like concerns and issues, and some of them are specific, as discuss and understand the barriers to women becoming firefighters in Encinitas. Others are broad in the sense like review local concerns related to fire and police. So there is sort of some guidance for us that's in there. And I think the point in our discussions from last time were to recognize this is a big task to do, and there's a desire of all of us to do something. And we certainly can do well and improve if we focus on the 3 things that are listed here. I think resource readiness pertains specifically to our police and fire. Is that right? Okay, because it's just not clear to me. So in that sense, I feel like weighing the scope that was presented to us for the commission with those 3 things, we're going to come pretty good, right? And we're going to shoot for the moon, and if we miss, we wind up in the stars, right? And we can adjust as we move on. Maybe we're not in a position now to be detailed to the council, but this is a pretty good attempt to get the meat on the bone. So I appreciate that. And the special events is fantastic. What was running in my mind, the big activity that I do, that I participate in, is the Leucadia Farmers Market. So like I feel I meet so many of our citizens just walking around there and having conversations with them as well. I don't know if that's considered a special event, but there's something we can do to sort of help that 20% rate, right? And really probably just our own internal pulse of the community and engaging and letting people know that there is a commission and asking the concerns. And my own straw poll has been the effects of the e-bikes on the community is lasting. It's almost like post-traumatic stress disorder. And I've been really confident, like being able to explain to them after hearing the presentation on what steps we have done to reduce the tragedies associated with that, but it still lingers in the community, right? There's still, that continues to be like and these are people that are doing their lives and not thinking about public safety on a regular basis. So that would be my way to all of the 3 initiatives that I'm going to think we do. 4, 5, and 6 is listed, and we can sort of do this whatever we need. But we're going to need to be constantly talking to our community and not just relying on those efforts of a straw poll to invent what's going on. So I think this is going well. I think we're close to maybe number 7, making a decision about having her going. On this end, did you have any comments that you'd like to make about number that, or Molly specific about the Olivenhain Water District?
Not on number 7.
Okay, if we could, Lauren, did you?
I did want to comment as far as the equity, diversity, equity, inclusion side of things. I do think it's a challenge for our public safety to get diverse applicants, especially, I'm in a large agency and we have a hard time getting women.
Right.
And that being said, I do think it's very important to have, and I'm sure the captain and the chief both want it, and I would love to help with that. And it starts with facilities, right? Like restrooms, shower facilities in our fire stations. They are public buildings. It is federal law. We need to make sure that we're accommodating to all. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't address that with either a gender ethnicity report from the fire department as well as the sheriffs, and just kind of see where we're at that way and how we can help to move that forward. I definitely have a lot of experience in that realm, and I would love to help assist them in the best way possible as part of maybe the resource readiness portion. But I think, again, we'd be remiss to not have that somewhere on this, specifically with the fact that the Equity, Commission or study was part of why we're here. And I know that it's a priority for the community.
Yeah. So along those lines, maybe we can move to entertain motions about special projects number 7. Does anybody have a motion?
If you're still looking for consensus, you don't have it.
Thank you. All right.
So what I've heard from some of my colleagues is that there's other groups that are working on this. And I don't believe that to truly be the case. There is an Leeuwenhoek Wildfire Safety Council that I helped found that does have some involvement in this, in the Leeuwenhoek space in particular. But the public interest from the Leeuwenhoek community is huge. And we had 2 Fitch reports that came with recommendations, I think January and then March of last spring, winter, spring. And I don't believe that there's any public forum other than possibly City Council where progress against those recommendations would be discussed, or where we could take a little bit of time to understand what's meant by some of those recommendations and educate the public on that. So, for example, we had a structure fire on a horse property back in Leeuwenhoek, I don't know, maybe, what is that, Chief, about a year ago? And the fire response was very quick onto the site, but it took over 15 minutes before firemen on site were able to connect to water. And I think that's a specific Leeuwenhoek issue. I suspect that it had to do with the style of truck that responded and its ability to connect to hydrants at a distance. And, those kinds of issues and discussions and giving voice to the community and having that collaborative dialogue so that we can get community support for the resources the chief needs. I don't think there's another commission that has the calling to do that. Chief, would you like to add anything to that?
I think the fire you're talking about is the one off Pepper Tree. Is that correct? Yeah. You're correct. We did have a Type 6, which is an F-350 apparatus that showed up. And the reason that they weren't able to apply water to the fire right away was because of the hose complement that they have on that apparatus. So one, there's only 250 gallons, which lasts about a minute. And then we have no 4-inch that can go from a hydrant, which was over 800 feet away, in the middle of their property to be able to get water too. So we did have to wait for a Type 1 engine, which is the normal fire engine that you would, in your mind, think of, to get there to drop enough hose to get water all the way to the fire. So there is those difficulties out there. We are looking right now as part of this project that the fire department is working on. Public Works and Parks is also assisting us with the vegetation management. But in regards to the resources and the type of apparatus that we have, we are already looking into providing a Type 1 fire engine with 3 personnel, and then looking into the whether we can get a fire station that can house that type of apparatus and personnel. So those things are already in the works and getting moved forward. We do have a good support system through the Leeuwenhoek, especially with Councilmember Ehlers and his connections and the Levenheim Fire Safe Council. We've talked to all the HOAs. Most of the HOAs were at our last town hall meeting and expressed the same concerns. So we are listening. We do have plans and momentum that direction. But again, with finding the revenue and the funding sources for all these is always a concern, right? There's a lot of projects. We've heard about flooding in Leucadia, paving streets. There's a lot of projects that are out there. So we're trying to, do what's best for everybody as well. But just to go back to Levenheim, we're working on those exact things with the fire department.
Thank you. So my suggestion would be that we maybe broaden the issue so that it's not specific to Levenhain, but it would include some of these Levenhain-specific concerns, as well as maybe looking specifically at those aspects of the Leucadia flooding that are public health and safety aspects and are not covered by environmental impact or infrastructure or other places where we'd be duplicating efforts, but focusing specifically on public health and safety aspects.
Would it, under resource readiness, where we have streamlined and optimized resources and tools for effective public safety measures, what I hear is there's a lot of work being done currently in Levenheim, but I also agree that there's a lot of concern about floods and how we're responding to that. So, and maybe a lot of this is information, and what I had heard the chief say earlier is, maybe just making sure that we're more regularly informing the public about the progress of what's happening. So perhaps we add to number 6 with the resource and readiness, just better information and community outreach around fire updates, flood suggestion. I will say, it's like when my house started flooding on Monday, I was just like, excuse me, Councilmember Hinsey, where can I get that? It's like sandbags because I didn't know. And so maybe if part of what Part 6 is doing is focused on that sort of stuff, then we can take off the special project, but encompass that in the work that we're doing directly with the police and fire. Would that
Just a
work?
quick clarification. So the ad hoc committees are the ones that are not public and are working with 3 or fewer commissioners. So I think that if we want to use these as a channel for public communication and transparency, we're better off not stacking updates that are communication-based in ad hoc work streams, but rather having on our regular meetings have just an agenda item where the chief is giving us an update on how he's doing against the Fitch reports or what the impact of public, the city can come back to us with informational updates on a regular part of our commission business.
I think the way the outline went.
Sorry.
Oh, go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm going to have to let Commissioner Dominguez speak. Thanks.
Well, one thing that I just heard the chief say that I think is really important to our work is the word funding, right? So you can say, hey, we need, 5-foot drainage ditches in Leucadia to move the water, and we're going to recommend that the city council do that. Well, we know that that's such a large item, right, that it's probably not going to get done. So I think we need to focus on things that we can really accomplish. And I understand shooting for the stars or shooting for the moon and getting this whatever that thing is. But you said, but let's talk about things we can do realistically, and let's not forget also, the everyday things that people deal with. Not discount the everyday issues that people have that are a larger segment of our population. And so this is what I was talking about, just we're really getting broad and expanding to the point where we have so much going, we're not going to get anything done. So I just think you need to be aware of that, right? So we need to just pick like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 things to get started with and then move on from there. But I just think about funding. You were talking about Carlsbad how Carlsbad makes more money out of Car Country Carlsbad into their budget than we have in our entire city budget. So anyway, that's it.
Commissioner Taylor?
I was just going to say, looking through the recommendations from the equity committee's work, some of those things that were outlined then are, pretty clear and apparent as to how they can roll into here. Listening to Dan a bit, it kind of changed my mind with regards to the Olivenhain discussion. But to add what Molly had mentioned, I think it can go in as a larger item because, again, Olivenhain is not the only place within Encinitas that is a high fire zone area. I think the way that our last meeting rolled out where, Chief Gordon and Captain Lawrence came in and gave us updates as to what was happening would be extremely useful. I think taking that information and then turning it around to cascade it to the citizens via whatever means we decide is essential is critical because ultimately, again, we are a conduit between the council and the community. And giving the community the tools that they need to make, really good decisions for their property, while also giving the council recommendations that they can take to make decisions for the city is critical. So again, I think, for the purpose of this meeting, I think some excellent points have been raised, but we're not trying to solve anything tonight. I think we're trying to solve what's going to be our work plan. And, and I think, again, looking back at that document that was created by the Equity Committee, looking at this, and then trying to couch, 3 or 4 buckets that these, things can go in, I think I would count that as a success for tonight.
Commissioner Andre?
Yeah, thank you. It's Andrade, just for future. No, I think Olivenhain is obviously a concern of the community, so it's a concern for us here. I do think that there's different platforms that we can have to educate people about how they can be more proactive, because I think what's hard about emergencies, right, is people don't know what to do. Right? They don't know the clearance that they need to have. They don't know what to do when the fire is coming and when you educate people on what they need to do. And I think that that's a big part of it was the community outreach, right? And how not just Olivenhain, yes, of course, they need to understand, and there's always going to be that situation. Unfortunately, in emergencies, that's why they're emergent, is we're doing the best we can, right? They're doing the best they can with what they have, right? We were at the Christmas parade and all the fire apparatus were there and they broke a fire, right? That's just Murphy's Law. It's going to be the way it goes, right? But at the same time, I think there's things like, we know we're getting storms. Hey, this is where you get sandbags. These are things that you can do on the website to do. If you have a concern or question, please put it here, type of thing. I think if we have something where we can empower the citizens and the community, and certainly if there's an issue or a problem area, but it sounds like, and I kind of feel like, I don't want to discount what you're saying, like by taking Olivenhain off, it doesn't mean we're ignoring them, not at all. It's resource readiness for all of our community, It's so yes, certainly is a water supply issue. Yeah, we need to address that. We need to address the clearance. We need to address the flooding, right? But that's where the resource readiness kind of comes into play. That was kind of where my mindset was as far as that goes. I guess I didn't want, taking it off of that, taking Olivenhain off doesn't mean we're not going to take care of them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sales?
I'd like to propose that we, because there's such intersectionality between 4 and 5, that we meld the two together. I think Dan might agree that, being a homeless advocate for so many years.
I think that certainly Yeah, there's certainly a huge, probably 50% overlap between those two issues. My only concern would be that if we're cutting out critical allies with the rule of three, we can only have up to 3 of us on an ad hoc commission.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought would be, yes, they definitely overlapped, but when I think of mental health, wellness, substance abuse, and addiction, I also think of a lot of work within our education system and prevention and working with the youth, working with people that, there are many, many who are not unhoused but are suffering from these sorts of things. And so I would be very adamant about keeping the 2 separate.
Well, I think it might be a good, can I
Go ahead.
respond to that?
Respond, yes.
Sorry. I think it might be a good idea to have overlap on the ad hocs then, where we have a section that we're talking about specifically about the overlap. Because, I know in the behavioral health world, there's such an overlap with unhoused. So we're trying to address that at a county level. And I agree with you, Molly, as well, that there are other aspects of it. So I'm not exactly sure how it should be structured, but in my mind, they're so related that I don't think you can really tease out each.
Commissioners, if I may clarify a couple items. So the ad hoc committees cannot meet with one another, because then that would be more than the 3 commissioners for an ad hoc meeting. And also, if a work plan is not finalized in this meeting, our next regular commission meeting is in March.
Yeah, so Commissioner Dominguez, you want to go ahead and talk?
I was just going to speak to that. I think we should go from the top, and if somebody has an issue with number 1, they can, and you can run this thing because I'm only the vice chair.
Okay, all right.
And then let's figure out where we are with each one and if there's a problem with any of those.
Does it make most sense to do a motion on each one? Like, we should just make a motion to vote, and if someone wants to make a motion for discussion, we should do so? For efficiency purposes?
What I was thinking is just go down and then at the end, maybe make a motion to accept or we could have discussion on each one as we go down the line. That's what I thought, but
Yeah, I think Molly was suggesting that we take each item as it stands. Do we like it? Take each item, and as it stands, if we like it, let's throw it up for a motion, second it, and then we can then discuss it and then have the final vote on if that item stays, goes, or goes someplace else.
Yeah, I think we should probably, before we adopt the format of the work plan as written, have a discussion over what we think the format should be, right? We're a first-time committee or commission. We don't really have a very well-defined scope of work. We don't have, mission, goals, whatever. I think some of that language is probably worth putting in place for our original work plan to the city.
Right. If I could, it seems there's a consensus and understanding that community outreach should be done. We could probably squabble over what it looks like and the different opportunities, but there's not going to be much contention there. There seems to be consensus on the ad hoc committees, right? Again, we can talk about what is under each one, and then I'll just speak to my own shift in perspective on the special projects, and a little bit to your format that you're talking about is it's a bit of transparency that we could provide for future activities that we have if we do have special projects called out, right? And this is obviously the Olevenhain. I'm somebody from the coast, and I wasn't paying any attention to the Olevenhain issues until I was part of the commission, right? So there are definite issues that are there. So maybe would we entertain an idea of this format working, where there's the 3 different categories as I see them? Would that work?
My recommendation, and it's just a recommendation for
Yeah.
my colleagues' consideration, is that we try to align on goals separate from the organizational structure to achieve them. And I think that, as you said, there's clear prioritization of being a conduit of enhanced and deepened communications with the community for our professionals, and hopefully a value-added forum for those communications. So if we make that as a goal, if we make a goal around our mental health readiness and services space, if we make a goal around working to end homelessness, if we make a goal around the readiness activities, and then by aligning on what we're trying to get done, independent of time frame, because some of this is going to be long term and some of this is going to be short term, but let's align around what we're trying to move towards, and then look realistically at what we can get done in 2024 and how we can get that done. And certainly, one meeting a quarter isn't going to get very much done by itself, so we're going to have some supplementary activities in there.
Okay. Commissioner Sales, did you want to speak, or do you want to remove your? No, I'll withdraw my press right now. Okay. Does anybody want to speak or present a motion?
So could we make comment on the individual, just going down the line, and the individual stated goals as just a start point? Can we just go down the line real quick and see if anybody has any issues with how this work plan's written, and then move forward to see if we can make a motion to accept it for now? I mean, it's not like set in stone. We'll probably end up making changes to it. It's a living document, I would assume. I don't get any acknowledgement, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
What I'm hearing you say is, does anyone have any objection to number one of how it's
Exactly.
written?
And just go down the line, right?
And then if anyone does, we should raise our hand or press our button. If no one does, let's not talk just to talk about it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, do you want to lead us through that? I'm
Certainly.
okay with that
Happy
process
to
if
do
others
that.
are.
Happy to do that. So,
Can I suggest that for numbers 1, 2, and 3, we collectively identify an overarching goal? Because the specific tactics are quite tactical on this. And I think the goal here is to facilitate a dialogue between the public and our professional staff where we're adding value, right? A value added.
can you present that in a motion that she can capture as our stated goal? So our stated goal for community outreach would be?
Something along the lines of to facilitate communication between the public and our professional staff in a value-added manner to, yeah, I mean, so I'm trying to get wording in here about being, constructive value add.
It's good. Keep going. You're doing fine.
Facilitate communication between the public and professional staff to develop value-added recommendations.
Say that one more time again, Dan.
She's writing it.
I think she's going to read it off for us once she gets it done.
If I can add to that, I'd also add something along the lines of increasing public awareness and public education on available resources. And then we can polish it up into a nice, pretty sentence or two.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to try also. How about focus on the community outreach to establish a clearer path and give the public a voice?
I'm going to just throw mine out there, to engage residents, stakeholders, and businesses in the community through a series of, what was the word? We'll use a series of surveys and,
Special events, town halls.
yeah, to understand concerns and issues related to public health and safety. And be a liaison to the city council.
So if I can just chime in, so probably would have behooved us, it would have been great to bring another commission's work plan to show you folks what it looked like. I pulled up the Park and Rec Commission I have it here. So they've got the same type of kind of goal. So community outreach, let me explain. Stated goal, Park and Rec Commission staff to conduct annual tours for the commission, one to observe summer recreation programs, and one to visit city parks, beaches, and open space. Attend city-sponsored events to raise awareness of the Park and Rec Commission, serve as city ambassadors by welcoming and meeting and greeting the public, serve in a volunteer capacity, conducting various event duties as needed. And the last one under community outreach is identify guest speakers for monthly meetings. So what it looks like is, I think you folks have defined what community outreach is. Maybe what you can do is put it into goals like that. So the Park and Rec Commission had community outreach, and how they're going to do it is they're going to do tours of both park and rec facilities so they can see participants, get some feedback. They're going to attend city special events to raise awareness of the Park and Rec Commission and what they do, and to volunteer at the event. And then the last one is identify guest speakers for monthly meetings. So I think one of the things you folks said is you are interested in guest speakers, and again, it's city staff, people from the county, it could be the mobile crisis response unit and things like that. So maybe those are goals. It sounds like you folks do want to engage with the community by going to special events or holding a town hall. So I think you're defining that, but what I think you want to do is you have goals. To give you an idea, these folks have 11 goals, and they're split into the different areas of community outreach, special projects, and so that's really what we're looking for. The one thing I can advise is it's great to have a lot of goals, but you want them to be accomplishable. Commissioner Vaughn is right. There are some goals that are more short-term. There are other goals that will continue to be on work plans. So just to give you another one of their goals, just to help with special projects, review park and recreation fees, review the field allocation policy, volunteer recruitment and implementation, research and planning for outdoor adult fitness equipment, review and monitor tennis court and pickleball court use in the city. So of course, these are park and rec, but you can see what type of goals those are. Some of their goals have the entire commission listed as who's going to work on it, and then they do have anywhere from 2 to 3 folks. So it would be great if you would like to try to find a goal under the couple overarching, and Commissioner Vaughn did a great job of basically you're defining what community outreach is, but can you put that into maybe 2 or 3 goals that you feel that you would like to accomplish, if that could help a little bit more to help guide you folks?
So to synthesize what I think I'm hearing from Jennifer is, maybe under community outreach, we have the high-level goal, but it's not a SMART goal that we're going to be judged against. It's just coordinating the activities and why we're doing it. And then we have however many of these specific numbered goals that are more actionable, and how they support and align with the broad objective.
And to that point, we can probably start, I'm going to say, with just number 1 and see if we like it. All right. So starting with the developing recommendations for launching a city quarterly newsletter, delivering valuable updates and resources on public safety. Discussion on that. Are we going to vote on that?
Who would be doing the work, and what would we not be doing because of it?
We're just creating the work plan and figuring out who does the work later. This is just building the structure for us to even be able to take action to decide who does the work, so.
And I think it's currently listed as all. All right, I'm going to just assume that we like that one. There's not seeing any. Okay. Number 2, conduct an end-of-year survey to understand public preferences and identify key areas for the commission to prioritize. Collaborate with existing public entities to align efforts and address community concerns effectively. Any discussion?
I think the text was to.
I would change the date. I
Yeah.
would say like ASAP.
Yeah, maybe a spring survey, where basically,
I don't know how long one of those takes to put together, but we're going to have to sit and figure out what the questions are going to be, right?
So
what-
commissioners, I have on the screen the changes that were discussed earlier. So for item number 2, it was conduct a survey, and that will be done in the spring of 2024.
Perfect.
I also added conduct end of year survey, so that will be conducted in winter 2024.
Excellent.
And so I understand, city staff would be doing the survey, we would just be helping with the questions?
Commissioner Vaughn, I know you folks want to do a lot of community outreach. Number one, your meetings are public. Surveys are definitely a controversial thing, depending on how you do it, how scientific it is, who answers. So perhaps since you are a new commission, what might be nice is for you folks to do more informal community outreach for your first year, because any time that the staff is going to have to, and you're right, it would be Commissioner Vaughn, staff would probably be obviously assisting with getting the survey out, considering it would be on city website, things like that. Maybe for the first go round, get more informal feedback from the folks, the special events, the pop-ups, see if you can get to a farmer's market. Again, your meetings. You can always also, if you know there's people that are interested, invite them and maybe look at doing a survey possibly in the next work plan that you have. And also to, as a city, we're possibly looking at maybe some type of different survey that would be like a citywide where we could roll questions. So that would just be my advice. Being in the city manager's office, I know some things may be coming down the road, so maybe it would be more of an informal way of gathering outreach than a full-blown survey at this time.
so what the language of informally survey community members through public events and engagement in the spring, which sort of makes sense since we kind of already focusing on what we're working on for 2024, and then in winter 2024 do a more formal survey of existing issues. Is that something?
Sounds like an in-between between those two suggestions.
Yeah, I hate to disagree with the assistant city manager, of course, but, from my perspective, we should get that input as soon as we can. I think we should try and get that as soon as possible. I think involving the public on the front end is really important to this and shows that we're being inclusive and not just deciding where we're going on our own. We're only 7 people here, but that's going to create, I'm sure, more work. But I mean, I don't know. I just think it's important.
I hear you, Alex. I'd say the one thing that I'm wary of is waiting and wait. We have to get this work plan up. And what I like about not doing a formal survey in the spring is let's see what we have. Let's see what we've come up with tonight. And then, do the informal surveys to see what are people saying. Because realistically, based on the things that we've identified here, I can't imagine that there are things out there that we haven't touched yet. Yeah. There may be 1 or 2 wild cards out there that we haven't heard about, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what's out there. So I would recommend we go with the informal events and then plan on a winter winter survey, because then that could give us an accounting of, did we hit the mark in year 1 and where do we need to go as we move forward? And again, these things are open to the public and people can constantly come in here and, let us know what's on their mind, so.
Commissioner Sales.
Yeah, I wonder how many people know about this commission, how many people go on the city website and check. So I would be in favor of having a more public-facing announcement, article in the Coast News. I think I mentioned this last month when we met, but I think more people need to know about the commission so that they can come to the meetings. And I agree with Marlon in that we don't need to rush into a survey right away, but let's see if we can drum up more interest in this commission and have people attend the meetings. And I'm not sure how that would be and what the city has done with new commissions in the past. Maybe Jennifer, you can answer that. Is that possible?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sales. Obviously, we post the agenda in enough time, at least 72 hours ahead of time. One of the things that we do rely on commissioners, and since I had 4 of them, is being advocates. So letting folks know, let your neighbors know. If you have any organizations that you are a member of, Commissioner Vaughn, you're very active out in Aleven Town Council, letting the folks know that this commission, we can work on some things. Senior Analyst Yum is also in charge of our communications, so might be able to think of a plan or at least maybe do a social media post. Hey, did you know that the Public Health and Safety Commission is meeting on this such and such a date? So we can look at doing a little bit more exposure, but of course, we do rely on commissioners to be that advocate for your commission because you were obviously so passionate that you wanted to do that, but getting that word out.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other speakers. I would add that going an informal route will be quick. We'll get information without relying on the staff to put together a more formal, statistically savvy, having impact. And I like the measured response where we go with the formal at the end, right? Sort of a halfway in between. So this seems like it's important to vote on this one. So
Sorry, I have
could you
youngish
read
eyes,
off
but
the-
I can't read that
yeah,
from
can you
here.
read off the language as it currently? And I think we're looking for an informal in the spring and a formal in the winter.
Of course. So I will say informal surveys, and I'll reword it to make it sound nicer when it's finalized. Informal surveys through special events and meetings to understand public preferences and identify key areas for the commission to prioritize. Conduct a formal end-of-year survey. And the timeline for it is spring and winter 2024.
Yeah, if we can just add, utilize existing social media and like city social media and to publicize meetings, at least the first one, I think.
Or could that be in the third bullet there, strengthen overall public awareness?
I can add it to the third item.
Okay.
We talked about building awareness as part of that spring objective. Is that something we want to explicitly call out? Explicitly call out something like to build public awareness and understand public preferences?
Strengthen overall public awareness, number 3.
Is it a different work plan? Is it a different work stream? Or are we talking about doing the same thing?
I think it's the same thing.
So I guess I'm suggesting rolling 3 into 2, making a single goal. Build public awareness and understand preferences in the spring through informal means, and then follow that up with the formal survey in the end of the year.
Is that possible?
So I can
Did you follow?
repeat informal surveys through special events and meetings to strengthen public awareness, understanding, and
To build public awareness and strengthen public understanding.
I would say I think it's important to keep number 3 as it is because that seems more vague to allow us to just, like, that's a continued thing that we're doing, not just in the spring and the winter, but that's just part of our work all the time. So I would also keep number 3 as it is.
Any other members want to weigh in on that?
I concur.
Yeah? Why don't we just look at number 2 and then look at number 3, if you could read them off. Number 2 reads,
Number 2 reads informal surveys through special events and meetings to build public awareness, strengthen public understanding, preferences, and identify key areas for the commission to prioritize. Conduct a formal end-of-year survey. Number 3 reads, strengthen overall public awareness and community outreach initiatives to foster engagement and collaboration within the community. It is also added right now to utilize social media to bring awareness to the commission.
I think the strengthen in number 2 got borrowed from below. I think that's probably something like gain. Or something along those lines, but I don't know what strengthening public understanding would be.
all right, do I have consensus here? Do we need to vote on this?
You can do consensus by each item and then at the end adopt the final product.
Guide me through this. Sounds great. I think we can move on to number 4 then.
Was there anything else in public outreach that we wanted to emphasize? And so, for example, we have
sure.
At the bottom the special projects, but we talked about rather maybe than there being special projects, have them be regular updates so that we're using that as a public awareness communications tool. So I'm thinking specifically about the Fitch report recommendations, the Leucadia public health and safety impacts of flooding, et cetera.
So you're thinking about the flow of information from the city to the citizens?
Yeah.
And so is there anything in there currently that discusses the flow of that information, or is it currently just one-sided information from the citizens to the council?
Currently in the work plan, I believe that could fit under item number 3, strengthen overall public awareness and community outreach initiatives, unless you would like to specifically define it.
Well,
It's good.
do we need to define it because the updates coming from the sheriff and fire are already parts of the meeting?
So we don't have to define it because depending on the commissioner's preferences, we will bring the public safety updates to the different commission meetings. But if you would like it to be part of your work plan to communicate to the rest of the public of these public safety updates, then we can put that in the work plan as well.
Yeah, I mean, is there a cadence that you were thinking, just monthly meeting, or I mean, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking that we could get into a little bit more of the why for some of these things and have it as an interactive discussion. So, right, we can post information in a newsletter on a one-way thing, and people may or may not read it. But I think part of the value add that we can do as a commission is have critical thoughts, have ability to bring forward voices from the community, whether it was informal or public speakers or however, right, so that we can have the value-added discussions. And, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to funding, but if we're making recommendations on the why for the funding and they're well thought out, hopefully City Council will value those recommendations.
How does that differ from having public comments at this meeting or at City Council meeting? I think what I heard earlier, and I was thinking that this can fall into the resource readiness, is regular, how I envision the ad hoc committees work is that people, a maximum of 3, can work together, they can meet together, and then they come and present. And so if there's a resource readiness ad hoc committee, and they decide we're going to put into the May meeting that we're going to have a presentation on the fire committee outcome, then, that's what they discuss to do as the ad hoc committee, but it's being presented here to everyone. So I think it's really important to be having these updates, whether it's about fire, flooding, e-bike safety, burglary and theft, a lot of things that we heard about, but I imagine that would just go under resource readiness, and that ad hoc committee would decide what that looks like as far as communicating to the public.
I got two things going on here. One, Commissioner Sales wants to speak, but also we've been talking here for about 2 hours and 10 minutes. Would we can, well, not only limit, but could we take a 5-minute break for facilities or anybody else they may need? Does that work for everybody? Yeah? Okay. We'll come back here at 6:17.
And just for your information, we do pause the meeting, the tape, but it will still pick up recording, so just so you're aware.
All right, we're gonna try to come back to the meeting. Dan, Alex. So I think everybody could appreciate us trying to get to like a stopping point for tonight. Yeah. Commissioner Sales? I think everybody can appreciate, we can try and get to a stopping point for tonight. I'm going to just informally say we're going to go till 6:30. I think I've heard a couple things. There's interest in meeting again before March, right? And I think the goal there would be to finalize our work plan. So City Commissioner or Jennifer, how can you find us a date and time? Can we ask you along those lines to do your magic with the calendar and then reach out to us after the meeting?
So just like how we did it for this special meeting, I'll reach out to everyone to see what their availability is in February, see what the date is that would have the most in attendance, and then send out the new special meeting date.
Okay, great. I'm going to also ask, do we feel like we're ready on community outreach there on the 3 bullet points? Do you feel like we've hit that? We're ready to move on?
I think if you're serious about ending in 10 minutes, probably.
Well, that's not to say we can't pick it up. It's not to say we can't pick it up at the next meeting. But it was just a sense if we're done with that discussion, we could say we're done with it. But if we're not, we're not. So
I'm good. I'm done with community.
I'm satisfied with it.
I agree. Donna?
I'm done with discussion.
Okay. You done? Dan, you abstaining or?
Yeah, whatever. I'll go along.
Okay. All right. Then that gives us 10 minutes to maybe tee up some ideas about the ad hoc. The first one is mental health, wellness, and substance abuse. I think I heard Commissioner Sales, you have some suggested nomenclature, vocabulary.
Can I ask a quick question before we dig into that?
Well, she was on the list first.
Okay, it might just make it easier. It's not a question of, it's just a question for, is it possible without our work plans for us to make a decision right now of who would want to be on each ad hoc, and then each ad hoc can meet between now and March to create a proposal to present for what we would like that to look like?
I don't think so, because the ad hocs are part of the work plan that the city council has to review.
Yeah.
So we can talk about which commissioners to put in each ad hoc and what the ad hoc would oversee, but we need to have the work plan approved.
Okay, so we would not be able to meet and talk about?
Not as a formal ad hoc committee.
Okay.
And then just to help us out with the rules of etiquette or brown draw, like we can meet as long as there's no more than 3 of us talking.
Yes, you can have discussions between one other commissioner.
Yes.
But any more than that would be considered a formal meeting required.
Okay. So, right. So I would encourage all of us to be talking about that.
I think we had some inconsistencies in the answers. I just wanted to clarify. If we were at a party and talking about something that overlapped with his business with 2 other members and still weren't a quorum, would that be prohibited?
You can go ahead. 3 of you can talk. Obviously, we don't have a work plan yet approved, so there are technically no ad hocs at the moment. Yeah, so 3 of you can talk. That's it. You can't involve anyone else in that discussion. And since you're not actually an ad hoc yet, you're not an organized body. And then you just need to be careful if you're out in public, you can't, remember, don't talk to the other commissioner if you've already talked to 2 commissioners. And I do want to just point out what Lois and I will do is we're just going to send you a couple work plans from some of the other commissions before you meet next. I just think that's a great idea. You folks are off to a great start. You're doing good. This will just help you take a look at a couple of them so that you can see just how they're laid out and how big the goal is and things like that. I think that would be super helpful. As any new commission, everything's a little bit harder sometimes to grasp, but we would like to help, lead you in the right path. So we're going to give you some resources. So at your next meeting, you're going to be ready to go and you'll have a work plan to approve.
All right. We're not going to open up your can. Yeah, let's just leave that. Maybe just the last, any things happened since we last met that you want to bring up?
Should we put some names in some of those boxes and ask one of the names to do some wordsmithing between now and our next meeting and get that to Lois?
I would be welcome to, Robin. I know Robin has some ideas around mental health and wellness. Do you want to submit that to Lois so that we can review as a starting point?
I thought we can't do that since we don't have any ad hocs yet. So I'm a little confused.
Can
about
each
that.
of us submit our own ideas to you only, Lois, and then you bring that back for us all to review? Like if I want to put something on mental health and wellness and Dan wants to and Marlon wants to,
Yes, individually.
we can just email you individually and then we can all work off of that document when we return.
So let's do that, okay? Everybody just individually between now and when we meet next time. We're looking at 3 ad hocs as listed here. I just want to mention, it wasn't mentioned for anybody that goes this, but there was significant, the Buena Vista Creek Navigation Center was approved. It's amazing. It's wonderful. My takeaway, they're going to offer 63 30-day caretake, throughout the year for our homeless people. They're going to provide services that are currently managed by a company that runs Oak Ranch, which is a very successful. There's going to be recovery. There's going to be transportation to and from meetings. There's going to be individual living situations. It's in 18 months they've been able to pull that off. It was pretty incredible at a cost. It's a 3-year project and a cost of about $1 million against the city every year. Yeah. So that was good. And also, there's, I believe, on February 14th, the city council's having a special meeting about the storm. Do I have that date right?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's on February 14th.
Currently, there will be an item to deal with streetscape and drainage. So that's currently, it's on the tentative agenda for February 14th. So it is tentative as always, but the agenda will be out the Thursday before that meeting.
Yeah, they made a point 2 weeks ago to say that they'll be talking about, the changes to the drainage that's going to report as part of that as well. So I feel like we're done here, and somebody gets to make a motion.
Well, so we have an agenda item 11.
Oh, we do.
My understanding is we're attempting to have another special meeting and the agenda item is going to be the work plan, correct?
Yes, correct. As of right now, that's the only action item for the special meeting.
Did you have other future agenda items?
Yeah, I would like to get an update on the 2 Fitch reports and our progress against those. They could be at a regular meeting, it doesn't have to be the special meeting, but I would like to get that on the queue for.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So the city commissioned 2 reports to support the fire department from Fitch and Associates, like the consultant agency. They'd come back with 2 rounds of recommendations in 2 separate report projects. And so this is work that Chief Gordon's been working to, and I'd just like to get a public update on how we're doing against those recommendations and, that facilitation of public communication.
Can we do that in the March, like make that on the March agenda so that February we can just wrap this up?
Yeah, I would like to get it on the queue for a future meeting, but it can be the next regular meeting, that's fine.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second that.
With the friendly amendment for March?
Are we suggesting agenda items?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd
Can
like
we
to.
stick with this? Can we stick
Okay,
with this
sure.
one? We need to vote on
Okay,
whether or
we
not
need
we're
to
going to
vote.
have it.
Sorry.
It's okay.
If we've got them by consensus, we can get all of the agenda items by consensus and have one motion, I'm sure.
Is that going to work for you? Does that work?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, thanks. What's your other agenda item?
For the next meeting, I'd like to give an update on Care Court and SB 43. So that I'll have good updates from the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and the county task force on that, SB 43.
Is that something we can do in the March meeting, or would you like to have that in February?
It won't be a long update, probably in February, but I can wait till March, it's fine.
Is there a second?
I'm going to add one more to hopefully the consensus, and then we can.
Okay.
I second that
Finish
for
the
March.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it'd be good to get the Homeless Solutions Manager to give us an update, and especially with regards to some of the Built for Zero methodologies that we've seen. What do we have in the way of a band name list, that kind of stuff. And again, this would be fine in the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Again in March.
So my understanding is you're wanting to add 3 total items to the March meeting. And Dan made the motion, and Molly, you approve, or second, sorry?
For the third one, I need a second for the
So-
third one.
So Robin, were you wanting February or March? I missed that. Okay, so I think that we can do them all as one motion. I'm willing to amend the motion so that it's the 3 items as you said.
I second that.
Any more agenda items for the future meetings? Yeah?
Yeah, I have one additional one. It would be what mental health resources we have for our police and fire, and maybe some statistics there as far as, you know, what the needs are there. I don't really want to, I want to address that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Does that work in March for you guys? Okay, so let's amend that to a 4th item.
Motion carries unanimously.
Move adjournment.
Well, you got me on the list, so commission reports roundtable, I'm not quite sure we have anything there. All right. Is there a motion?
Move adjournment.
Second.
All right. I don't know.
Boom.
You did
Thank you, everybody.
great.
Thank you, everybody, for today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Jennifer, I have a quick question for you on something else, if you have a second.
Yes. Actually, if you go around, there's an actual door. You don't have to step down the huge thing.
What's your name?
Jackie.
I'm Robin. Nice to meet you.
So you'll go out the door and it'll be to your left.
Good job, Lois.
You know, it's serious business.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Never. Have a good night, everyone.
We're gonna get a work plan together at some point. I don't know what